welcome to Masters of Divinity. I'm your moderator, JP. That's me, and I'm here with Father Chuck.
Yo.
Father Chuck,
in my tropical Tommy Bahama shirt today.
You look particularly ska band frontman today.
I'm gonna have to burn this shirt now.
Why? Ska is awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna put something out there for our listeners about ska, because I mentioned this to you the other day, and to me it was after Goldfinger recorded Superman,
mm-hmm.
And then Mighty Boss Tones recorded The Impression That I Get.
Mm-hmm.
Why did anyone think that? Why did anyone feel like they should make ska again? Because they're perfect ska songs. Like there's nowhere else to go with that musical genre than those two songs. They're like perfect. Right.
It's like the grudge bands that tried to make it work after Smells Like Teen Spirit came out.
Right. Like why? Like even these bands, even like Goldfinger and Mighty Boss Tones. Why did you keep making music? Like you hit it, done.
Yeah. Real Big Fish. What's up?
Oh, Real Big Fish was kind of good. But still, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like those two songs are just such a like platonic ideal of ska music that as a genre that everything else is just sort of like drafts on that perfect ideal.
Yeah. What was that? What was the song the Real Big Fish did that was really popular? Is it Freak Out or Drop Out? Get Out? Hold on a second. I'm looking at because this is
Take Out, Make Out, Bake Out, Stake Out.
I think it was. Hold on. Sell Out. Sell Out. That's all I need to look up. It's a good song. I like that one.
Chocolate Stout.
So let's get on to our topic.
Which I don't know what our topic is.
So Matt was supposed to be here. And I did kind of have a topic. I'm still going to do it. I was going to try to kind of, I don't know, modify it, but I'm still just going to do it. So I'm just going to say, how do I want to get into this? I'm trying to be as honest as I can, because I don't think we should do like the whole like I've been thinking so much about emotional labor ever since we've kind of talked about it on this podcast. The idea of like how you had to kind of get into a mode where like you feel some sort of certain emotion to make it work or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna be real. Like this week has really sucked from me. Just some things have been happening at home that have caused me to go through some weird transitional periods, and kind of made me really uncomfortable. And I've had to kind of had to like do some survival methods that I learned when I was like living in extended stay hotels so that I won't like go insane and snap at people and be a bad person. And I've just been trying really hard to like indulge in very little things that make me happy and not like, I don't know. Well, this also kind of leads into something that I also want to cover, which is, we talk a lot about pop culture on this podcast. And, I have a background in filmmaking, and, as I like to critique films. And, when you critique films, I think filmmakers and most film enthusiasts and most fans of like anything really will kind of like over intellectualize the things that they're into.
Mm-hmm.
And will kind of forget to sort of talk about like the emotional part, the part that actually like really speaks to them, has nothing to do with like quality.
Right.
So I'm trying to tie these two things in where I'm like having a bummer week and also approaching the things that make us happy without intellectualizing it and just like feeding off of like how it makes us feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you, Chuck.
Sure.
what have you watched or listened to or read recently that you thought was really good? Or that you just really loved?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You had mentioned to me that you watched Flight of the Navigator, Neverending Story with your boys.
Yeah, a couple months ago, but yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, we did watch Flight of the Navigator with Charlie. He and I watched it, and we sorry, hold on.
Is there a Max UFO outside your window right now?
Yeah, that would actually be pretty awesome. No, it's somebody walking by that hasn't been on the campus in months. I guess they're back in town. Anyway, sorry. I'm sitting in there's a big window behind the computer, so I'm like seeing like everything going on.
You start spacing out and start like the Alan Silvestri Flight Navigator music starts playing.
Oh, that music is so good. But we watched it, and partly I wanted to watch it with them because it's a good family movie, but also I wanted to be able to show Charlie where the ship is in Tomorrowland. Oh, okay. Because they have it there. They've hidden it, but it's there. But that was a little while ago. I mean, stuff that I've watched recently that I think is really good is well, Kana and I are we're really into Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I'm not caught up on it. I watched, I think, the first few episodes and then just kind of like forgot to. Not because it's like a bad show or anything. I just like sometimes I can't keep up with shows.
Right.
Especially if they like came out weekly, which that one did at the time.
Right. And it's and the thing is right now there is so much.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult. And there's other shows that I haven't even been able to watch. Like I still really want to watch like Preacher, which I think is like 3 seasons in now.
Yeah.
Which is hard to believe. But yeah, so tell me about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Why do you like it so much?
I laugh harder at that show than I have probably any television program I've ever seen.
Any television program, really?
Yeah. I deeply love Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of stuff I've laughed really hard at, and I really consistently Brooklyn Nine-Nine may be the funniest show I've ever watched. It's also, oh no, I take it back. Kimmy Schmidt is probably the funniest show I've ever watched. We haven't watched the new episodes yet, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine is definitely up there. And the thing about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, what I really do love about it is how it plays against expectations. One of the things about it that I like is that they deal with two characters falling in love, two main characters that sort of fall in love. Mm-hmm. And so many sitcoms do this thing where it's like, oh, they get together, but then they break them up because there's this sort of weird feeling that people in happy relationships do not make for good television or good storytelling, but they've decided to go against the grain with that and explore like what storytelling, what is there within a happy and healthy relationship and even into like a marriage and stuff like that. The Office pioneered that a little bit with Jim and Pam, but to see it in a sitcom is pretty good. And also an interesting thing that they took it to be an Office Place sitcom, but it's a cop show.
Right.
Because it's more about like the office side of police work. The detective stuff is fairly, I mean, it's a big part of it, obviously, but the actual like on the field stuff is not as common a thing as it is just the bullpen of detectives in their office work, which is just a fascinating take. But the characters are great. The writing is great. It's very funny. There's a lot of heart. Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
Who is my favorite character? I would say my favorite character is probably Raymond Holt, the captain.
Okay, he's really funny.
Yeah, it makes me what's the actor's name? Andre. I'm not sure to properly pronounce his last name, but it starts with a B. Anyway, I love him so much that I would love for him to be like a Vulcan in Star Trek, because he's basically a Vulcan on the show.
Yeah, because he's sort of like just kind of like stone faced, right? Like doesn't show
Right.
kind of emotion.
Right. And what I enjoy, as an aside, I enjoy that on top of that, he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just sort of part of just, it's not like not to criticize another show that I do find pretty good when I've watched it, which is Modern Family, but there's this tendency in Modern Family to sort of put the gayness like way front and center for the character of Cam on, and which is something we've done a lot in television with gay relationships. It's kind of interesting that in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, his gay relationship, his husband and everything is just very like, it's boring. They have a boring marriage, and like it's just a thing. Like it's not, this, they give, acknowledge it by the fact that he has a rainbow flag on his desk. Mm-hmm. And then you meet his husband, and his husband plays a role in the show off and on. And they make references to the fact that he is a black gay commissioner, and the struggles that he's had as a cop coming through New York through the 70s and 80s and 90s. But like, other than like a couple of like background kind of things, it's not treated as like this is all this guy is.
Right. It's normalizing it to make it sort of like a part of life that's not weird or shoehorned.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't emphasize its sort of otherness. It's just there. And it's just there.
Interesting. I remember like really loving Terry Crews, but I love Terry Crews and everything.
Yeah, Terry Crews is fantastic and should be in more things. And I try not to get too caught up in fan casting. Yeah. But if I were to fan cast any movie that I would have him as Lobo in a DC adaptation of Lobo. Yeah. And I would make the Lobo movie kind of like a Smokey and the Bandit kind of story, where Lobo is, sort of the protagonist. He's, kind of anti-hero-ish, but that the quote unquote villains of it would be the Green Lantern Corps as sort of the cops chasing him on his thing. And so like, that's like the foil to him, or the Green Lantern. That's how I would introduce the Green Lantern into the Green Lantern Corps into the DC world. I wouldn't make necessarily a Green Lantern movie. I would have the Green Lantern Corps as like bumbling cops chasing after Lobo. That's the movie I would make.
Who would you cast Terry Crews in a Marvel movie? I would have him play The Thing.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
I was, for some reason, my initial reaction was Galactus. You want to see it.
and he has to act like how he acts in the Old Spice commercials.
Exactly. Like he should be, because Galactus is a ridiculous character. Or Mephisto.
Oh, they already have a Mephisto.
That's right. Because
no, I'm thinking Mysterio, not Mephisto.
Yeah, Mephisto. I'm just trying to think of Terry Crews, because he's such a.
He really, his strength is to be like big and enormous presence, but also very warm-hearted.
Right. Yes.
Very funny.
Maybe not Mephisto then, and maybe not Galactus either. I mean, I'd love to see him play that, but yeah,
it'd be kind of fun to watch him play evil.
It would be, because he hasn't really.
Yeah.
I will say my favorite role for him though is when he plays President Camachi in Idiocracy.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that movie.
Really? No. That's you need to remedy that.
I guess so. I mean, everyone keeps making the joke where I'm kind of tired of the joke, to be honest.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that at this point it has entered into a zeitgeist that, I mean, I watched it and I will say I was kind of underwhelmed by the movie. It's one of those movies that I didn't necessarily enjoy it when I watched it. It's sort of, as I've interacted with aspects of it later on, that I realize how funny it is. But in the moment, I did not find it all that funny. Except for Terry Crews' character, because it is such a ludicrous concept of the future that, I mean, his middle name is Mountain Dew, which is hilarious.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, cool. No, that's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's a show that I need to get on board with that. They canceled it recently, right? And then they brought it back on Hulu.
No, Fox dropped it in their big purge of their shows, because they dropped like Last Man on Earth and all these great comedies. And then NBC opted to pick up Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, okay.
And I think for at least one more season. I don't know if they're going to do another season past this one, but they did pick it up, and so it's on NBC. But I watch everything on Hulu. So Kane and I have been we stopped watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine for a period of time so that we could sort of save it up and binge a few episodes at a time, so that we're never like caught up, and then we have to keep waiting for new things.
It's so difficult not to binge.
That's honestly the reason why we have not watched the new Kimmy Schmidt episodes yet.
Yeah,
we every time I suggest it, we're both like, oh gosh, I don't know, because we know that as soon as we start, we can't stop, and we'll be up to like 2 a.m.
And they do it on purpose.
Oh, totally.
Because like I've noticed like I love Stranger Things, and when the second season of Stranger Things came out, they released it a few days before. It was like the weekend before Halloween. And I was like, if I watch all of this right now, I'm not going to have anything to watch on Halloween. I want to watch this on Halloween. It's like, I'll take it slowly. I don't have to binge. Binging is such a dumb thing. Like just an episode a night, and I'll still have like 4 episodes to watch on Halloween. It'll work out perfectly. I watched all of them the first day. No self-control. But on the other hand, I can't really I can't do that with like Twin Peaks. Like I'm still on season 1 of Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And like I want to binge Twin Peaks, but I can't.
Is that Twin Peaks? Like, are you talking about the original or the revival? Okay.
Yeah, because I've never seen it before.
Oh, gotcha. Well, and those older shows, I will say, like those older shows make it like the pacing and everything is so different. There's just so much to take in, and I feel like we're in an era now where they're writing for binging, whereas back then they were writing in such a way that it was self-contained storylines per
You're
episode.
probably never going to watch it again.
Yeah, and I find that like an interesting thing for me is the other night I was feeling in sort of a Star Trek mood, and but I wasn't sure I was feeling Next Generation, because normally what I watch when I'm sort of in a Star Trek mood. But then I tried to I thought, I'll watch some Deep Space Nine. But I started going through Deep Space Nine. I was like, but I can't, because it's such a serial focused show, especially in the later part of it, that it's hard for me to just sort of like pick up an episode and watch. Whereas I went back to Next Generation, because you can just pick up an episode at random and watch an episode of Next Generation. It's a for the most part a self-contained storyline, and it's it relates to a few other things, but it is its own thing. Like you get a full narrative arc. There's no cliffhanger. There's no there's nothing that's sort of like, oh, gotta keep the storyline going. Yeah. And that's the thing that, and I wonder this. I mean, this would be an interesting thing to think about and talk about at some point, maybe in its own episode, or just to analyze, is there's a longevity to something like Star Trek: The Next Generation and the original Twin Peaks, and like that you don't get with a lot of these binging shows.
I know,
because it's like one and done. So is it a disposable? Is it part of our disposable culture?
I don't know if it's disposable. I think it's like reading a book again. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, not to say people don't do that, but like if I read a book, I'm not going to read it like a billion times unless it's Watchmen, which I've read 1,000,000 times.
Right.
But I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. Like I have not rewatched Lost in over a decade.
It's crazy to think that show is over a decade old.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, as I realize as I'm saying this, I come home pretty frequently, and like when the kids are napping, and if Kana's working, she'll have something on, and Kana rewatches stuff all the time. I mean, she's rewatched Downton Abbey so many times. She's rewatched Gilmore Girls so many times. Mm-hmm. So. And including the recent, like last year or whatever run of Gilmore Girls.
Right. But yeah, like Game of Thrones. I've rewatched Game of Thrones, but like I can't think of like an episode that was my all-time favorite. I mean, there actually is one episode that I really love, but like there's not like Buffy. I could just be like, oh, that episode, I know what happens in that one. That episode, I know what happens in that one, and I could pick and choose and watch a handful that like perfectly coincide with each other from different seasons. I can't do it like Game of Thrones.
Right. Yeah. And like going back to Next Generation, like with Next Generation, you can sort of, as you go through the show, you can sort of think about like what mood are you in? I'm like, sometimes like I'll be there, like I'm kind of in like a kind of in like a intellectual mood. Like which episode of Next Generation is going to deal with like existential questions? Like I'll watch that one. Yeah. Or like I'm just in kind of like a goofy holodeck mode. Let's watch that episode. You know, you get that with Next Generation and some of those shows. You know that you don't really get with some of the newer stuff. Like again, like I haven't watched Discovery yet, and I really want to check out Discovery, but the fact that it's a serial show makes me a little concerned that it's not going to you don't get that kind of storyline and narrative stuff that you see with the original Star Trek shows, you know, because it's again, it's a bingey show, which is why I like the Orville, just to kind of also bring in that show, because it's more like Next Generation. It's each standalone episodes. It's not a serial show.
Yeah. See, that's another show that I can't keep up with because it comes on weekly. So I can't I lose track because I'm a bad viewer.
Do you have Hulu?
I have Matt's Hulu.
Nice.
But I don't, even if I did, like my internet is so bad, and like, yeah, I do have Matt's Hulu, and sometimes I'll try to watch something. But like my internet won't. Like there's this show on Hulu that I really, 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 really want to watch called Inside Number 9. And it's an anthology show from BBC. It's sort of like a dark comedy thriller show. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's really popular in the UK. And I can't watch it because my internet sucks, and I can't pirate Matt's Hulu to watch it. I didn't hack Matt's account or anything. He let me use it so I can watch Sliders.
We had Kane and I had my in-laws were in the book business, and so they had Amazon Prime, and then when Prime Video came out, it was just sort of part of their Prime account. Yeah. And so my in-laws never used it. Like they don't do streaming, and so they told Kana and I, they're like, well, we're paying for this, you might as well use it. So here's our login information. And we were so wary of watching things because we knew that it would show up somehow, like in the email, like, how did you enjoy? And so we were like, we really don't need to watch anything that might require some kind of like explanation.
Yeah.
And so then eventually we just decided to go ahead for our own Prime thing because, you know, we've sold our souls to the devil.
Yeah, we all have. We've given into that, the hyper capitalism that's happening right now. Yeah.
Well, actually, you know, you want to talk? I want to let you talk more because I realize I've dominated our conversation on things we've watched and discussed. But you're talking about things that we read. One thing I did read recently, and this might be worthwhile to inspire an episode or what, but Gizmodo just published a series that one of their writers did for 6 weeks. She gave up for the first 5 weeks one of each of the big 5 tech companies. Like she installed a custom VPN on her computer so she couldn't even engage with their software. And she talks about how it's impossible to avoid Amazon. But then on the 6th week, she blocks all 5 for a week, or attempts to.
Didn't she like revert to like an old smartphone she had too, and then took it to Verizon, and like they said they couldn't?
No, she did find, because she's a tech writer, she's like, she found a ton of old Android phones for when she was blocking Apple, and was able to use that. But then she went to Target and bought a Nokia. You know, the Nokia phones that we used to have. Nokia revamped those phones, but made them a little like kind of smart-ish, and like $60. So she used that phone, and because Nokia has no connection to any of the other big tech companies, at least for that phone market, for those handsets, and so
she couldn't avoid Amazon.
Couldn't avoid Amazon because Amazon makes their most of their money on Amazon Web Services, which is internet hosting. So like so many websites and different web services are provided by Amazon. Like
that's crazy. I always figured like that was Google's racket.
Yeah, no, Amazon is encroaching big time on that, and Google, and then Google uses the cloud. So what was it? She mentioned that I guess, was it Spotify? She couldn't use Spotify because Spotify uses Amazon Web Services. She couldn't watch basically all streaming was out for her because if they don't use Amazon Web Services, they use the Google Cloud for storing all of the shows. And she learned about all this stuff because there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but he's a technologist, and he's developed this VPN that blocks the IP addresses of all the big 5 tech companies. And so as she would go to websites, she would discover which ones were.
Wow.
And she said it was shocking. And she said one of the things that was really scary in all of it was the IRS uses Amazon Web Services or something like that. So even like government websites are the Treasury Department was one of those is even governmental websites are being hosted by private companies.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
The internet is just 5 websites now.
Really? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. She mentioned though that one company that it was really hard to give up, but she did respect it. It was Apple, because Apple's so closed that you give up Apple, you give up Apple. Like they haven't really woven themselves into like everything. They're just their own closed system. And so if you choose not to use Apple, then you can avoid them. They're the easiest one to avoid. And they have a pretty good reputation around privacy and things like that. So she did mention that, of the big 5, they were the one that she felt, was a little more, altruistic in their approach to things.
Well, that's it. I'm moving our website to Angel Fire. And our email address is going to be a Hotmail address.
But that's Microsoft. That's one of the big 5, buddy. I mean, and the article is very fascinating. I said it'd be an interesting thing to read the whole series, and maybe, I don't know, they talk about the ethics of this, because that's something I've been spending a lot of time with. And she introduced me to a company called Purism. And they make laptops and smartphones that are completely disconnected from the big 5.
That's interesting.
But a Purism laptop is about as expensive as a MacBook, but it is nowhere near the quality.
Yeah.
And then their smartphone is kind of interesting, but it's all like Linux based stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
We have no idea how to use that, but nice. Are you interested in maybe trying that? Like, you think you'll ever give it a shot?
The thing is my feelings on it is I liked Apple when I first used an Apple computer because I liked the fact that it just worked. I turned it on and it worked, right? And I've read Steve Jobs. I read the biography that Walter Isaacson wrote about Steve Jobs and got into sort of his philosophy of technology. And I really agree with Jobs's philosophy around technology, that these are tools, and that they shouldn't. His problem with where computers were when he first got started is that they were basically like an offshoot of like the ham radio hobbyist community. That there's engineers sitting in their garages. They wanted to be able to build and customize and all this stuff. And his problem was that a lot of where personal computing was going was that the computer insisted upon itself, that you have to do maintenance on it. You have to like read instruction manuals. You have to like spend all this time like engaging with this stuff. When he feels that really, if it's a tool, it should just work. He says, you shouldn't have to spend, you don't need, like, if you pick up a screwdriver, you don't need to spend like 2 hours maintaining the screwdriver. Like, you pick up the screwdriver and you put it, and it works. And so I really agree with that idea around the technology. And the only way to really make that work is to have things as a closed system, because in a closed system, you're sort of a gatekeeper, and you can sort of, by being a gatekeeper, you can create, you hold people up to certain standards that have to work with your software. Because one of the things I learned when I built a computer years ago, a Mac or a PC, back in college before we met, was how everybody manipulates like the BIOS, which is the core programming language for like all the chipsets in on the boards. Yeah. And so every company does their BIOS differently, and they all code differently. And there's, oftentimes corner cutting and different things that happen. And so you buy, like a Toshiba, CD-ROM drive that you then, connect to an Asus motherboard that you then connect to, a Voodoo video card or whatever. All of these things have a slightly different language. And so that's where you get all these registry errors. And well, I mean, some computer person is going to correct me on this, but this is where you get some errors and things that just don't work because these things aren't always communicating perfectly. Right, yeah. But when you're doing everything in-house and you're making all the components, it's much more streamlined. But I think that's, but like, an Android phone can get a virus. An iPhone cannot. Yeah. And that's partly because Apple's a closed gate system. They control who puts what in there. And so, yeah, there's the suspicion around the idea that I'm giving a lot of control to this company and that I'm sort of at their beck and call because, if Tim Cook leaves and somebody else steps in, who's to say that they're going to be the same kind of, mindset of altruism or whatever that Tim Cook tries to be, and that their interests might not be my interests. And so within an open system like Linux or whatever, I'm able to customize it and do a whole bunch of stuff with it my way and sort of tailor and control it around what my preferences and desires are. But I just don't know that I have the time or energy to have to do all of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Just keeping up with like you said, to build a computer, you have so many different components that you need to pull together. And like, if something goes wrong, you have to identify which component it is. And
right.
It's like spinning a bunch of plates at once.
Right.
And like my dad needs a computer. I'm not going to expect him to know all of that,
Yeah. I mean, it does speak a little bit though to the shift in, a particular shift of thinking, right, around like independence and adulthood, right? I mean, because part of me, just as I'm thinking about it, right, you think about your dad knows how to work on a car. It's a classic thing. Like dads know how to work on cars. Like I don't know the first thing about cars, but like I can change a tire. But I know a few things about computers. Like maybe that's the thing in the future is that like we're supposed to know how to like work on a computer. Like maybe that's the.
Or how to like MacGyver stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's but I will say that as I like, I can't block Google in my life because the school I work for is a Google campus and all of our Google hosts all of our servers or email information, like all of that. And so to not have Google would mean I can't do my work. And there's a part of me that's kind of concerned about that this company that used to be pretty, their motto used to be do no evil. And then they decided that that's not their motto anymore.
Yeah.
That's concerning, right? Like you make a choice to not do no evil.
Yeah.
And, companies that have felt pressure from oppressive governmental regimes in other countries to sort of tailor their software to meet the whims of despots.
Oh gosh. Yes.
That's concerning. So the idea of sort of opting out is always enticing. But
or just, change the world, man.
Man. Yeah.
Vote for Bernie Sanders.
Oh no, please no. I will say there was a time. Bernie 2016, yes. Bernie 2020, I don't know.
Anyway, okay, so cool. So Google is taking over the world. We can't escape it. It's unavoidable.
Yep.
It's inevitable. Do you think the apocalypse will be more like Terminator 2, The Matrix, or Mad Max?
Weirdly, I think about that a lot, actually. I think it's like the Maze Runner. That's what I
Maze Runner. The Scorch Trials.
I just watched about a week and a half ago. Kana and I watched The Death Cure.
Oh, is that the next one?
That's the third one. Yeah, we've watched all of them.
I think it's going to be more like Divergent. A series that's not going to get an ending, apparently.
I thought they finished it by releasing it as like a Netflix movie.
I don't think they're going to do that.
Oh, really?
I stopped paying attention. That whole thing ended. That crashed and burned.
The whole young adult post-apocalyptic thing.
That stopped pretty abruptly. Like
Yeah,
it just bam, no more.
Well, I mean, because it's marketed to teenagers, and their tastes change like suddenly.
Yeah.
I mean, rapidly. I would think about when I was 14 years old and 13, 14 years old, and my friend Josh introduced me to skateboarding. As soon as I was introduced to skateboarding, like I went from, like a Tuesday knowing nothing about skateboarding till like by that Friday, I was wearing Jinkos and like my mom was suddenly angry at everything I did. I went from being like a fairly respectable kid who was very excited to buy DC Talks Jesus Freak to a Jinko wearing chain wallet, grungy kid listening to MXPX like within like a month. I mean, so teenagers, our tastes, like teenagers' tastes change so abruptly. So it's kind of funny that we would build like this huge like thing around it and not expect it to just implode suddenly.
Not mine.
Not yours?
No, I still love Buffy.
Well, right, but I'm just saying. I mean, but I'm just saying, like
it's true. No, yeah, it is. I won't.
And plus, the Hunger Games did it so well that everything else felt like an imitator.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And because I think so. I mean, this is another one. Here we go. Harry Potter really started that off. After Harry Potter was done, those kids had become young, teenagers into young adults. And so then they wanted a book series to replace what they had with Harry Potter. And then somehow they gravitated to the Hunger Games. So then they adapted the Hunger Games into a movie. And the Hunger Games did it so effectively that everyone was sort of like, oh, we can capitalize on this. And everybody was like, oh, it's just a ripoff of the Hunger Games. Like everybody saw it as a ripoff of the Hunger Games. Like every one of those things.
You sort of just like brushed past Twilight.
Twilight doesn't count.
Twilight connects Harry Potter and Hunger Games.
Did Twilight come up before Hunger Games?
Yeah.
See, I feel like Twilight was its own thing. Like I don't feel like the Harry Potter crowd gravitated to Twilight. I feel like
I think a lot of people did. I mean, that's what I remember.
Oh, God, I hate those books. Seriously, how many times can you use the word russet?
Have you actually read them?
I
haven't read them.
I tried.
You tried?
I tried.
I know Matt's read them all. He has multiple copies.
He would.
I'm not even like making fun of him. He actually does.
I know he actually like legitimately likes him, doesn't he?
I think he does. Yeah. First, he would sit here and make the case that it's like, oh, it's just like Buffy. It's the same thing.
If he were here right now, would he actually us about the Twilight series?
Yes, he would. Yes, he's actually on us right now as he's listening to us, yelling at his iPhone.
I bet he would be saying, "I understand people's criticisms of it, but for me, it's." I think that he would. The funny thing to me about it is that it gave us Robert Pattinson, who's become, and Kristen Stewart, who've both become like really great actors in the indie film scene.
Oh yeah, especially both Kristen Stewart, who's become sort of like a lesbian icon,
right?
And then Robert Pattinson, who is basically like somehow
he's James Dean.
He's become even more indie than like Ryan Gosling was when he was kind of doing his low profile stuff.
Right.
And I was impressed by Ryan Gosling. Robin Pattinson is like he's doing stuff.
Yeah. So is Harry Potter.
Daniel Radcliffe. Yeah, he's doing really cool stuff too.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to me that Robert Pattinson, like, I mean, and you watch the Twilight movies and you get the sense that they're both aware, like, we're just making money right now. That's all we're doing. We're just making money.
There is, I used to have animosity towards Twilight. I don't really anymore because I kind of understand fandom and how important like women's fandom is, especially at a time like that. There's like a great video called I think it's called "With Apologies to Stephanie Meyer," and it's made by one of my favorite video essayists, Lindsay Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of like, it's sort of like kind of apologizing to her and her fans about like kind of not taking it seriously and not taking like a sort of a friendlier analysis of what they were into and stuff.
Here's the thing. I feel Twilight is creepy. It is a creepy. The love story is creepy.
That was always kind of the critique.
And I don't know that I would ever subject young people to it, because I feel like it's really because it's very I mean, Stephanie Meyer is a Mormon, and so it has very much that. I mean, come
there's
on,
some
the movie,
repression going on. There's some.
Well, the movie is a totally like an abstinence only storyline. I mean, okay, cool, be chaste, that's awesome, but at the same time, it encourages like, you guys are so thirsty, you need to get married so you can have sex. And there's, and like, I get it. He's like 1,000 years old or whatever, right? He's like 100 something years old. She's a 17-year-old person. And that is messed up. That is a messed up story. And how do we know that it's messed up? Because it gave us 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey is an interpretation of Twilight, because that is fan fiction of Twilight. And so it takes it to a new place. It takes it to its
all right
distillation.
I'm gonna bring my A. We're gonna talk about this again sometime. I'm gonna bring my A game to this, because I'm not prepared.
Are you gonna defend 50 Shades of Grey?
Not exactly. Not exactly. I could defend the first film,
because it's such an abusive story.
It is. It's awful. No, it's terrible. It's definitely it's yeah. And in that video I talked about, Lindsay totally trashes 50 Shades and the author. But yeah, we'll talk about this some other time. We're going to bring my A game. We're going to talk about Twilight and 50 Shades. It's going to be great. But I will say, I think kind of the crux to the way people are sort of reflecting on Twilight and why they feel kind of sorry, some critics, is that like we're kind of sort of coming to a place where we're kind of learning. I think a lot of people are learning to enjoy problematic things as long as they're kind of self-aware about what's problematic about them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think people are probably coming to understand that like a lot of teenagers are like, oh yeah, we know he's being creepy, but we kind of like it. That doesn't mean we want creepy boyfriends, or that they're going to all of a sudden, kind of fall prey to following the footsteps of whatever her name was. It's in the same way that like we kind of enjoy our own fandoms and stuff that are probably not healthy, but we're self-aware about it enough to still enjoy it.
That's true.
So I don't know. That's my teeny tiny defense of Twilight.
Look, you do you.
Yeah.
Hey
man, don't pull that millennial crap with the you do you thing. That's ruining evangelism. That's
callback. Nice. But I also feel a little bit like I'm willing to acknowledge that Twilight was not written for me.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm probably not gonna always understand it, and that's okay, because it wasn't. It wasn't.
Did I ever talk in this podcast about the Twilight concert that I was like, that was thrust upon me?
The what?
The Twilight concert that was thrust upon me.
Concert.
Yeah.
No. I
was living in LA. And at the time, I was working for the AFI Fest, which is the American Film Institute's
A Fire Inside, yes, the emo band from the mid-2000s. That's okay.
AFI Fest, which is the American Film Institute's film festival they have every year in downtown Hollywood. And our offices were located at this area called Hollywood and Highland, which is sort of like a big shopping area. Mm-hmm. That's modeled after a set from an old silent film called Intolerance. It looks like it's supposed to look like Babylon, which is kind of weirdly appropriate. And they have concerts down there. It's used as a concert venue, and a bunch of other promotional stuff, because there's lots of like Tonight shows and all stuff going. It's Hollywood. So our offices were directly in that area above the Victoria's Secret, and I show up to work one day. and there's just like teenage girls just lined up around the block, all around this mall area. I'm like, what is going on? I noticed they're all wearing Twilight t-shirts. I'm like, oh no. Oh no. And this is the height of Twilight, like pandemonium. Like this is when the first movie was on its way out. Was on its way of being released.
Okay.
Hadn't even been released yet, but it was on its way. And I pull in. I'm like, I get to the office. I'm like, what's going on? And then they're like, there's going to be a concert going on outside while we have to work in here. I'm like, well, who's it going to be? They're like, Paramore.
Hey, don't you knock Paramore.
I have nothing against Paramore. I was excited. Like, oh, I like Paramore.
Love that Haley Williams.
She's cool. Pop punk, baby. Heck yeah. So then I was like, oh, great. So we have to stay in here. There's literally going to be a Paramore concert right outside our office. And also, like, the whole cast is going to be there, except for Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart, and Ashley Greene.
Yes. And
a bunch of other people. And then it was so funny, like, trying to work, and they're just, like, the whole office is vibrating with Haley screaming at the top of her lungs. And then my boss is like, okay, guys, come with me. I'm like, okay. And apparently he had, like, roped off an area for us. We actually got, like, VIP access and got to watch the rest of the concert and see Kristen Stewart and stuff.
That's cool.
So it was like, I can't believe this is my life right now. This is amazing. So that was my brush with Twilight fandom.
Nice.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah. I have not had that experience.
No. We have a little time left. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I realized you were living in LA when I was living in DC, right?
I think so.
And it was just kind of cool. Like I was thinking about, like, you know, we each had mutually cool things going on at our life. Cause like you had like that stuff going on. And I remember when Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert hosted that event on the National Mall, I went to that.
Nice.
Got to see some of that. And that was kind of a cool thing. And they also filmed, of course, you know, part of the third Transformers film while I was there in DC.
Oh, well, I was an Iron Man too.
That's right. You were an Iron Man too. You were.
I won't get into it. I'm so upset because I can point out the angle where JP is present if there wasn't a giant CGI robot blocking him.
Oh yeah, the blocking.
And it's not in there. Blocked out.
No SAG card.
Nope.
One of my best friends from my childhood, Josh, who's occasionally listens to the podcast, he was in Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
Really?
As a pirate. And apparently there was a scene where I guess it's when Keira Knightley is sort of taking charge of like all the pirates, and she's giving like some kind of like this rousing speech. And
she does her Braveheart speech, yeah.
Yeah, and there's like all these pirate ships sort of gathered around while she's doing that. Well, he was on one of the ships, but then I think they decided to change, like they cut or drastically changed the scene where they added like stormy seas or something instead of it. So all the stuff he filmed, like, cause he was keeping me updated. He was like, yeah, the name of our boat is this. He was down in the Bahamas filming for it and all this stuff. And they just cut all of it.
That's funny.
Cause he was like, yeah, he's like, I was in this shot. He's like, I saw the dailies where I'm bobbing in his boat behind, like where she's in the camera. He's like, I can point out, like when the movie comes out, I'll point out to you where I'm at. And then they just CGI'd him out of it or whatever.
That's Hollywood, baby.
Yeah.
Sometimes you end up on the cutting room floor.
It's a shame.
That's how it goes.
Yep.
So I've been kind of trying to revisit some stuff as well. I haven't really watched much lately. I haven't really been able to do that. But I've been listening to a lot of pop punk.
Yes, you have. I
have been engrossed. And I don't know. It started a couple of weeks ago when I was just listening. I was randomly listening to like Blink-182. Like they were just sort of randomly playing on YouTube. I just sort of let it play. And then this American Hi-Fi song came on. I don't know if folks at home remember American Hi-Fi. The song Flavor of the Week.
Yeah.
And it got stuck in my head and I went nuts. And for some reason I was just like, I should just listen to pop punk and maybe it'll be fun. And I did, and I can't stop. I can't stop, and I won't stop because this is going to be my thing now. I think that's going to be my thing now.
Your pop punk.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be the pop punk guy. I think that's who I want to be.
There is a really great. I do not like the band A Newfound Glory, but they do a really great cover of The King of Wishful Thinking that I have listened to a lot.
What's that?
You know A King of Wishful Thinking? Because I'm the king of wishful thinking. I'll get over you. I know I will. I'll pretend my ship's not sinking.
I mean, I do know who Newfound Glory is.
And I tell myself I'm over you because I'm the king of wishful thinking.
I'm really uncomfortable right now.
You don't know that song?
No. I'm so musically illiterate. You know that. That's why I'm the pop punk guy.
Dude, I will say pop punk. I remember the first time, probably the first punk song I ever heard in my life was Basket Case by Green Day.
Yeah.
And something like it triggered something in my brain. Like I heard that sound and I said, that is what I'm gonna listen to for the rest of my life. And then I discovered MXPX and I discovered them on a compilation of Petra covers. They covered Petra's I Want to Be Friends with You. And I was like that. I bought their album on the cover. And then I don't know what it is. Ever since then, I hear pop punk music and I'm like, it triggers something in me where I just can't. It just makes me so happy.
That is the energy that makes up pop punk, is that sort of lightheartedness.
I bought Blink-182's Enema on the State out of spite.
Out of spite of what? Who are you spiting?
My friend Josh, I mentioned earlier, his little brother John really wanted the album, and we were in that phase where we couldn't listen to non-Christian music and all this stuff, and people were kind of making fun of. You're like, oh, they're a terrible punk band. Why are you listening to Blink-182? Blah, 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 blah. This is before that any of that album hit like on MTV or anything.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really heard any of the songs. And so I had some extra money. I was like, so I bought it just to sort of spite him. I was like, you can't buy it, but I'll buy it. And he's like, dude, not fair. So anyway, we got in the car to drive home, whatever, and I put it on and I was like, what is this garbage? I think I fully intended to like give it to him afterward. Yeah. And then I was like, oh no, this is one of the greatest things I've ever listened to in my life.
That's a great album.
It is such a good album, and I still listen to it.
Really? So you think it's their best album?
No, their best albums are self-titled from 2003.
Oh, okay.
Or 2004.
That was kind of when they were sort of becoming emo, right? Isn't that kind of like...
that's sort of their emo sound. Yeah, I think that's their best record because it's their most it is the most musically mature album. But I do really, really like Enema of the State. And I like listening to it because I realize it sort of fits within a concept. They've never said it's a concept album, but it sort of fits within a concept. And it came out at a perfect time for our age, JP, because I realized listening to it that the themes deal with uncertainty and uneasiness with growing up. And the song Going Away to College is a perfect encapsulation of that feeling of leaving home to go to college. Like it captures that just so wonderfully.
I was just thinking about the way I'm sort of getting into pop punk now. It's really just a phase. It's kind of the same way like how I got into like 90s grunge when we were in college. And I'm starting and the sad realization that sort of come over me is that like we are further away from like what's considered to be the golden era of pop punk than I was from 90s grunge when I was into it in the college. Because it's now like 20 years old.
Kids today listening to Enema of the State
right
is like you and I in high school listening to the Bee Gees.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's insane. Because that's a 20-year difference. It's insane.
I hate it.
Yep.
And I think it's this year that the What's My Age Again video turns 20, right?
Yeah, 1999.
Yeah, that was my entry into Blink-182 is that video.
Maybe because 1999 was such a great. Maybe our Music Mayhem this year should just all be 1999 albums.
I'm okay with that. We got to get the other people on board. I know we're still brainstorming about Music Mayhem and stuff.
All year long. I'm thinking about Music Mayhem. As soon as we finish Music Mayhem, I'm on to next year's Music Mayhem.
It's like our music festival. It's like our Woodstock we put on every year. That's
yeah, because like I really wrestle, and I will say what I wrestle with is like diversity right now. This is what I want. I realize we almost exclusively talk about white male bands, and I'm like trying to think of ways to diversify. And I have an album in mind. I just don't know that it's. Anyway, we'll get to it.
We will, yeah. But yeah, pop punk is great. I keep listening to this song called "Best of Me" by The Starting Line, and I'd never heard it before. Like I never watched the video before, never heard it before like I found it like a few days ago. And it's funny because you're watching, I'm like, this seems pretty modern. This came out like when I was in college or something. No, it came out 2002, when I hadn't yet gone to college.
Right.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And it starts off with a little acoustic thing, right? In the beginning.
Yeah.
Is there anything better, right, than the acoustic pop punk song?
Yeah.
Chris, what's his name? Dashboard Confessional. He like perfected that.
I never got into Dashboard.
Yo, you never got into Dashboard,
except for that one Spider-Man 2 song they did.
Oh, Vindicated, great song.
Yeah.
That's a great album. Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, right? That's off the Spider-Man.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Because it also has a song by Blue that I really like, Blue Macaulay.
There's a great Yellow Card song on there that I think is vastly underrated.
Oh, Yellow Card. Pop punk with a violin.
Yeah, you watched the I showed you the Weezer skit, right, from SNL a few weeks ago.
The one where like they're arguing about
Matt Damon and Leslie.
Yes. I watched that episode. Yeah,
they're arguing about Weezer, and then like the one girl is just like, "Well, what about Yellow Card?" That's a great sketch, by the way. I love that sketch so much.
It is such a good sketch.
I listened to Pinkerton right after that.
Nice. Did you have you ever because the song you just mentioned, what's it called?
For Yellow Card?
No, the one you've been obsessed with.
Oh, Best of Me.
Best of Me. I'm presuming you've listened to "Hey There, Delilah" by the Plain White T's.
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. Because there's an evocative element there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have that acoustics kind of sound first, and then it kind of breaks into electric.
Yeah.
Or does it break into electric?
I don't think it does.
It's been a while since I listened to it.
Yeah. But nah, man. There's a purity to pop punk. I don't know what it is. There's a purity to it.
It's also kind of really juvenile.
Oh, totally.
I don't know. I don't listen to it because I can relate to it. You know what I mean? Like,
except here's the thing. It's juvenile, but I will say, because you've been in this phase, I've been listening to one of my favorite bands is a Christian band, Craig's Brother. They're a pop punk band, but they are a serious pop punk band. Like there's a darkness to what they're talking about. They're not like lighthearted and juvenile. And I think they're a really great Christian band too, because they for their time period, they came out when I was in high school. And I mean, they were doing songs about like divorce and stuff that, like, coming from like being raised by divorced parents and broken homes and stuff like that, which was kind of interesting for a pop punk,
right.
For the genre.
Are they like a new band, or is it like a?
No, they came out in I think, let's see, their first album, Homecoming, I think came out in like either 97 or 98.
Oh wow, okay.
And they've only had like 4 albums. I will say that one of their albums has been on the contender list for Music Mayhem for me. But I posted something on MySpace when we were in college about them, and the singer contacted me.
No way, really?
Yeah. And he read my stuff and commented on like essays and stuff that I wrote through my MySpace. It was kind of awesome.
Oh my gosh, you need to find all of those essays and we need to put them on the site.
I have revisited my MySpace account and most of it is gone now.
Chuck, did you have a live journal?
No, I never had a live journal.
I had a live journal. It wasn't good.
Was anyone's good?
George
R. Martin.
The live journal story is crazy too. It was like bought by Russia or something, and now it's like huge in Russia.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
Dude, we're just sort of like reliving like the late 90s, early 2000s, pop punk.
Because it's starting that cycle. We're getting to 2020. We're getting to 2020, so that 20-year cycle of nostalgia is starting, right?
Right.
So we're going to get starting being nostalgic for the early 2000s, which I think was like a horrible decade.
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed by whenever I go to the mall and I see a Forever 21, and I've seen that like H&M and Forever 21, the clothes that they're selling are like the clothes I saw in the mall when I was 15 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of 90s fashions are back in. I mean, there's
no.
Well, girls at that school, like they wear like the lace chokers and like combat boots and stuff.
Oh man, bring back the puka necklace, baby. Come on.
Oh, those are gonna have that's frosted tips. They're gonna come back, aren't they? dude. What is it? Jinkos are supposed to be coming back, or they're trying to make a comeback. I hope to God that doesn't happen. And my mom will be happy to hear me say that I hope to God that does not happen. I will say though, their logo graphic design from the late 90s was amazing. And I'd be happy if just the logos came back, right? Just like late 90s fresh jive, like if mid 90s fresh jive came back, I'd be happy too. They had great graphic design. But ringer shirts, those can come back. Ringer shirts.
Yeah, dude. Bring them back. I had a whole closet full of those.
I had a bunch too. But cool. But I'm starting to see more and more like chrome and metallic stuff making appearances in the H&Ms. That's why I know that the early 2000s are getting ready to make an appearance again.
Strap in, folks.
Yeah. Though things that people have like, what is it? There's a style called like vaporwave.
Yeah, I love vaporwave. Vaporwave rules. Yeah,
and that's kind of, I mean, that's got kind of an early 2000s.
It's very much modeled after the 80s.
Well, it's modeled after the 80s, but the color palette is kind of early 90s because there's a lot of like they use a lot of like Windows 95 graphics
some of that
stuff, and clip art and things like that in it.
A little bit of that, yeah.
C-punk.
C-punk. I don't think that really took off. I don't think that's it's like I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't like that. I don't like that. But I thought it was kind of interesting that apparently pop punk made like a very brief resurgence back in like 2015 or something.
Yeah.
And then it just went away because of the SoundCloud.
Right.
SoundCloud rappers.
Well, like I don't know if they count as pop punk, but my the middle school group that meets here on Thursday mornings, my Christian fellowship group. I mean, they're like into they were really big into come on, who is it? Panic at the Disco.
Oh, really? Nice.
Like last year and year before, Panic at the Disco, and then I think even some who was that other one that was Adam Lentz or Adam Wentz was their bassist.
Fall Out Boy.
Fall Out Boy. They were another one they had made a little comeback too.
Yeah, man. That song was one of my all-time favorite songs. But yeah,
World the Middle.
Heck yeah, dude. But I've actually kind of discovered some pop punk bands that are, current, and it looks like the women are holding it down.
Yeah, because like Paramore.
Yeah, there's a band that I discovered called Stand Atlantic, and they rock.
Okay,
they're really good. You gotta look them up.
Stand
Atlantic. Okay, and some other ones. I forgot their names. I don't know. They rock. All right, I think it's all the time we have.
Yes,
you got to go pretty soon.
Yep.
Cool.
But I will say I hope things get better for you, JP, and I hope that just sort of talking about entertainment and pop punk and listening to pop punk makes you nice and happy.
It does. And it's so funny. I don't know if you've ever listened to so much music before that you have like 5 songs stuck in your head at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to do a pop punk since they all kind of sound the same.
It's true. Yeah.
Kind of like go from one to the other seamlessly, like that. All right. So Father Chuck, thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
I hope you have a wonderful week, and I also hope that our audience has a wonderful week.
Yes, and if you're not having a wonderful week, go listen to some pop punk. Get some Blink-182 going.
Yo, put in Enema of the State and light a candle.
What's My Age Again? How can you watch the video for First Date by Blink-182?
I would even do that. Go, yeah. Oh gosh, the First Date video is really good.
It's one of the best music videos ever made. Yeah.
That's another thing from the early 2000s when like everyone was obsessed with like mullets. Like mullets and stuff.
Totally.
So immature. But yeah, go watch some pop punk videos and lift your spirits a little, or it'll make you puke. I don't know. Whatever your sensibilities will be. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next week, and have a great week. Good journey.
Good journey.